Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you today to speak to you about a powerful model. This model will transform the way we communicate with each other. Who here has been in a workshop and they've come out of the workshop and you've thought you're in agreement, and as it turns out, you actually weren't? Even though there are action items communicated, and even though things were written down, people didn't seem to agree, and everyone came out with a different idea. Who here has experienced that? Thank you. Yes, I have as well. And who here has been to a workshop where everything was clearly communicated and amazing understanding was reached, and the project that followed just flowed easily and effortlessly? Who's been involved in one of those workshops? Thank you. Maybe not so much. How would it be if every workshop you came out of, every meeting, everyone had an equal understanding of what needed to happen next? So the resulting project or change initiative or whatever it was that you were talking about flowed easily and effortlessly every single time. Who would like that? Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, that's what we're going to speak about today, because this model means, when used effectively, it will mean that people will be able to communicate with each other more effectively and more easily. Sun Tzu once said that if orders are not clearly understood by the soldiers, it is the fault of the generals. Now, this is a really powerful and interesting quote, because what it means is the responsibility of communication is with the sender, with us. So us as communicators, us as leaders, it's our responsibility to ensure that the way we communicate is effectively understood by others. When I was 5, my little sister ran through a plate glass window at the Royal Canberra Yacht Club. Now, I know you must be wondering, what does running through a plate glass window have to do with communication? So I'll tell you. When questioned afterwards, my sister told my mother that I had run off on her, and as a result, she had to run after me. When I was questioned, I told the truth. And the truth was that I was sitting in the bathroom and I said to my sister, "Please wait for me, do not run off without me." And she ran off. So isn't it interesting? The same event seen by two different people. Even now when we talk about it, we still see that same event in very different ways. So the fact that the same event can be seen completely differently by two different people is amazing, because it means that we can change things. If we can change the way we see the world, we can change the way we communicate, and we can change our impact on others. Who thinks that could be quite exciting? William James once said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a man can alter his life by altering his attitudes of mind," which means there's so much about our external world we can change by changing our attitudes, by changing the way we see the world. And that's what we're going to be speaking about today, because if we can change the way we think, if we can change the way we view an event, if we can change the way we see things, hear things, feel things, then we can change the world around us. And in changing the world around us, we're able to have a better connection with others. And when we connect with others, we're better able to understand each other. And of course, when we understand each other, how much better is that? How much better chance have we got of ensuring that the projects that we have flow easily and effortlessly? 50 to 70% of change programs consistently fail, according to McKinsey. 50 to 70%. Now, this isn't a 2008 figure. This is not a 2012 figure. This is a consistent figure. 50 to 70%. Now, the PMI, the Project Management Institute, backs this up by saying that the majority of the reason for project failure is people. People. Not processes, not systems, not software, not hardware, but people. So it's people, and also the way they communicate with each other, which means that we're not communicating effectively with each other, which is resulting in a large amount of our projects failing. So can you imagine what it would mean if we could change the way we communicated just a small bit, just a tiny bit, what it would mean? That 50 to 70% failure could turn into 30 to 40 Or 10 to 20? Or what about even 0? What would that mean for us? So what I'm going to talk to you about today is something called the NLP Model of Communication. Now, NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And Neuro-Linguistic Programming is the study of the mind and our language to get great results. It's about modelling excellence, and it was put together by two gentlemen by the name of Richard Bandler and John Grinder in the 1970s. This model of communication explains how we communicate with each other and also with ourselves. So this model of communication explains how an external event comes into us, is processed by our neurology and results in a behaviour. It actually explains why two people see the same event in different ways. Because information comes through, it's processed in very different ways depending upon who you are, and results in a behaviour that can be very different, and it varies from person to person. So when we understand how this works, it means we're able to change things. We're able to change the way we look at things and improve the way we communicate with others. Okay, who's interested in learning how this all works? Excellent, thank you. Well, let's go straight into it then. So how the NLP model of communication works is indicated by this diagram here. So an external event comes in and is processed by our 5 senses. Now our 5 senses are our visual, our auditory, our kinesthetic or touch, our olfactory or smell, or gustatory or taste. Now the benefit of having 5 senses means that we actually experience the world through a number of different channels. Now these channels will filter every bit of information, and these filters are called deletion, distortions and generalizations. Now the purpose of these filters is at any 1 second, 20 million bits of information are coming to us. Now according to Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, when he wrote the book Flow, he actually said it was 2 million, but recent research has made it as high as 20 million or even 40 million. So you can imagine. Click your fingers with me, 1 second. 20 million, 40 million, 60 million, 80 million, 100 million. Every second, thank you, 20 million bits of information are coming to us. So when they all come in, there's no way that we could possibly take every single bit of information in, which is why our 5 senses will delete, distort, and generalise this information. Let's start with deletions. We delete a lot of things. For instance, you may not have noticed that the price of petrol as you were driving here today. Or you may have. If you didn't need to buy petrol, you probably didn't notice it. And that's okay. We delete things all the time. And the purpose of deleting things is because we only need a certain amount of information. So whatever we delete means that it's of no use to us. So deletions are very, very important. Distortion's very interesting. We distort things all the time to make sense of our own world. And distortions are actually very handy because it allows you to recognise people when they're dressed in different clothes from when you first might have met them. I was in the supermarket last weekend and I saw someone that looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place her. And as it turns out, it was Mary from my office. But I'm used to seeing Mary with beautifully blow-dried hair and a suit. And this particular day, she had her hair in a ponytail and was wearing a baseball cap. I almost didn't recognise her. My ability to distort allowed me to recognise Mary. So we distort things all the time. A common distortion is when you taste a new food and you say it tastes like chicken. We distort it so it makes sense in our world. So that's distortions. Generalizations we do as well. Generalizations are great because, again, it allows us to make sense of our world. For instance, we'll generalize that Australia is a country with good weather. Now, we all know as Australians that Australia doesn't have good weather all the time everywhere, but it's easier to generalise it and say that Australia is a country that has good weather. We might also choose to say that all Australians are friendly. Another generalisation. We might also choose to say that all English people are whingers, but we know that's not true. However, that's a generalisation that some people choose to make. It's interesting, isn't it? So these are our deletions, distortions, and generalizations. Did anyone have any questions about deletions, distortions, and generalizations? Okay, let's move on. So once the information is deleted, distorted, and generalized, we now have 134 bits of information. So we started with up to 20 million. We've now deleted, distorted, and generalized down to 134. Now that sounds a little bit more realistic, doesn't it? If I gave you 134 cotton buds, that's still a large amount of cotton buds, but you'd know what to do with them. If I gave you 20 million cotton buds, that would be a lot more complex. So now we have 134 bits of information. Or, as George Armitage Miller quotes, 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information. Now this concept was first introduced in a paper that George Armitage Miller wrote called The Magical Number 7 in 1956. And he stated that information comes in and is easily digestible in 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information. 7 is a very magical number too when you think about it. The 7 wonders of the world, the 7 dwarfs, 7 easy steps to creating the perfect pasta. 7 is used a lot in our world, and it sits well with us. We can understand it. In fact, phone numbers used to be 7 numbers until they got a bit longer, which is why we probably have a few challenges with remembering phone numbers now, whereas back when we were younger it was easier. Interesting, isn't it? So now we have these 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information, and we have another number 7 coming up. We have 7 filters that now go through. Now the benefit of these 7 filters is that we are now making sense of the world in a new way. So whereas we deleted, distorted and generalised to filter the information down, we're now filtering the information based upon our own selves. Now this is massively unique to us. So I'm going to run through these filters first, and then we'll go through them in a little bit more detail with some examples. So the first one is time, space, matter and energy. The next one is language, then memories, then decisions, meta programs, values and beliefs and attitudes. So let's start with time, space, matter and energy. So this is our physical world around us. It's where we are physically, it's what time we are, it's the matter that makes us up and the energy at which it vibrates. So you can consider it, in simple terms, our physical world. Any questions about time, space, matter and energy? Does that make sense? External world? Okay, great, thank you. The next one is language. Now, we may speak 1 or 2 languages, but the way we language something actually defines our world. So the Eskimos have 600 words for the word snow. Isn't that amazing? I only have 1. So can you imagine if I learned the Inuit language, I would have a whole new world open up to me as I understood that there are 600 ways of understanding the word snow. So that's our language. Then we have our memories. Now, I have a very clear memory of my sister running off at me and running through a plate glass window. My sister has a very different memory. Now, our memories define who we are. Without our memories, how can we even exist? Because they make up our whole world. So memories are very important. And from those memories, we make decisions. For instance, you may know somebody who, as a child, ate broccoli and has a memory of the broccoli tasting awful. So from that, they made a decision to never eat broccoli again. So our decisions are very much based upon our memories of things that have happened to us in the past. So it's really, really important. Our meta programs are interesting. We call these the content-free filter of our brain, and we have 19 in total. Now these memories are things like whether you're optimistic or pessimistic. They could be like the glass half full, glass half empty. It could define whether you move towards pleasure or away from pain. And this is just who we are. And as I said, there are 19 of them in total, which we can go into in a later workshop. The next one is our values and beliefs. Now these are the things we fight for, and we very much have different values and beliefs about everything that happens in our world based upon other filters like our memories and decisions. And the final one is our attitude. We have certain attitudes about things that happen. One thing might happen to one person, another thing might happen, the same thing will happen to another person, and we will form a very different attitude about it. I have a great story. There was a shoe company in England that sent 2 shoe salesmen to Africa, and they both went to Africa and they both came back with very different reports, even though they went to the same place. The first guy came back and said, "There's no work here, no point in selling shoes, no one wears shoes." The other guy called them and said, "You have to send me more shoes. This is a great market, no one wears shoes." Interesting, isn't it? The same event, 2 people have formed a completely different attitude about something. So they're the 7 filters. Are there any questions about the 7 filters? Okay, great. So let's recap. An external event comes in. 20 to 40 million bits of information is deleted, distorted and generalized by our 5 senses into 134 bits of information, or 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information. It's then gone through filters, and there's 7 ones there: our time, space, matter and energy, our language, our memories, our decisions, our meta-programs, values and beliefs, and attitudes. Now all this is all happening in such a split second. Once filtered, it now forms what we call an internal representation. Now an internal representation is like a picture, and we all form a very different picture of the same event. Even now, as you're sitting here, you'll be experiencing a different internal representation to what I am. You can see slightly different things behind me, I can see slightly things behind you. I have different filters that are forming a different internal representation, a different way of how I'm perceiving this event. This internal representation drives a state. Now this can be a physical or an emotional state, and in turn this drives your physiology and your behaviour. So that's the model. Are there any questions about any of the steps? Okay, great. Now let's have a bit of fun with this. I want everyone to just hunch over in their chairs right now. That's right, yep. Get right nice and low down and put your head down on the ground. That's the way. And just look down and have a bit of a sad face. And now I want you to sit back up in your chair, that's really good, and put your arms in the air and look up. And put a big grin on your face. Wonderful. Did anyone notice any difference in their state? Yes, interesting, isn't it? It is an energy change. So the amazing thing about this, and the thing I love about this model the most, is there are so many variables. You change one variable, you change everything. And the easiest variable to change, because let's face it, changing the way you value something or an attitude towards something may take some time. It may be more challenging to change, but you can change your state, you can change your physiology in an instant. You can go from being down here to up here in an instant, and it can change everything. A study by Harvard studied a group of people, and they asked them to sit down in a hunched position for 2 minutes before a job interview, and then in another job interview stand up in what they call a power position with their arms in the air with a big grin on their face. And after each time they measured the levels of testosterone and cortisol in their saliva. Now cortisol is a stress hormone, and the higher your cortisol, the more stressed you're likely to be. And testosterone gives you power and strength and confidence. In the people who were hunched over, they had high levels of cortisol and low levels of testosterone. And the same people that were standing like this had higher levels of testosterone and lower levels of cortisol. Now this is amazing, because this means that we have the power to change one small thing about the way we behave, the way we interact with others, or even the way we prepare for a job interview, and we can change everything about our world. We can change the way we see the world, we can change the way we interact with others, and then as a result, we can change the outcomes that we want, and we can get the results that we want. So, now that we've gone through the model, what did you notice, what did you learn, and what would you like to share? Thank you. So, as you go out into the world, I want to encourage you to really think about the filters that you have. I want you to really think about the way you see your world. And I want you to go out into the world and see things in a different way. And as you see people in a way through your filters, I want you to start adjusting how you might hear what people say, adjusting how you might speak to others and interact with others. And as a result, as you speak to these people, as you hear them, I want you to feel the differences when you do things like change your state, or when you change your physiology. I want you to feel how those differences are for you, because it will have such an amazing difference on the way you interact with others, not just in workshops and meetings or at home, or workshops and meetings, but imagine the impact on your home life, your family, your friends, because it's so much more than that. Because when we can connect with others and get the outcomes we want, it's not just about results. It's about really connecting with the world in a way that we understand each other. And when we understand each other, just imagine what sort of results we can get into the future. Thank you everyone for your time. I trust you've learnt a lot from today, and I look forward to connecting with you again and speaking to you more about these amazing communication concepts. Thank you.